Hi there. Are you all talked out? Well, I love talking to women. I think that I've spent the last, 39 years writing books. I realized I started in 1973, and I wrote a book called Touch Me, Poems. I was sad in 1973. I was a teenage mother and divorced when people didn't get divorced, and I always found an outlet through writing. I'm Irish. You know, and Irish people either write or drink. I do a little both. And I have found myself in an interesting place. I loved being Chrissy Snow on Three's Company. I just had the greatest time there. But I did, at year 6, I renegotiated because my contract was up, and I didn't understand why, when I was on the #1 show and I had the #1 demographics of all women in television, why all the men in television were making 10 times more than me. So I went in to ABC and I said, you know, I'd like you to pay me what you're paying the men. And they fired me so that no other woman would get uppity and expect that they could get parity. But then when they lost so much money because the chemistry broke up, I think things changed. So when I see women getting paid well in television, I think, well, I think I had a little teeny bit to do with that, and that makes me feel good. But I asked myself, why, at that time, why would this happen? I was good. I was a good dumb blonde. I really knew how to do her. And in many ways, because I was a child of an alcoholic, in many ways, Chrissy Snow was my opportunity to be the child that I never got to be in my home growing up. Those of you who come from alcoholic homes, you know that it all revolves around the alcoholic, nothing revolves around the children. And so you're always adaptable and trying to fit in and be the person that won't make your dad mad so he won't have to drink so much and be so violent. So Three's Company was a wonderful thing for me in every way I can think of. It gave me incredible fame. It gave me incredible visibility. First time I ever made some money. I really loved it. So I couldn't figure out why, when I did so well and I achieved so much, why would I get chopped down at the height of my success and then I could not get a job in television for a long time because I was considered trouble. And I thought, trouble? I just asked for a raise. I mean, all they had to do is say no, or why don't we negotiate and go back and forth. But they wanted to make an example. In fact, I had gotten a phone call from an anonymous person in the business department at ABC, and he said, I'm just telling you, they're going to hang a nun in the marketplace, and it's going to be you. And I said, me? Why? Why would they want to get rid of Chrissy Snow? But now I'm just completing my 26th book, and I look back, and I realize I needed that fame and all that controversy and all that negativity and all that self-exploration and self-doubt and why did I do it, who did I think I was, and all that, to be able to get to here in front of you today. There's a reason for every negative in our life. There's a reason for every positive. But if you know, we're all been around long enough to know that you don't learn much when things are going really great because you're so busy enjoying it and appreciating how great it is. It's only in the dips, when you're in the low point, when you have time to think. When you have time to think, that's when you can reorganize, reinvent, and that's what I did. I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I now keynote for doctors' conventions. I teach doctors how to take care of us at this age because I chose to self-educate, and at one point in my career I thought, I can probably call pretty much anybody and they'll take my call. So the first call I made was to the head of Johns Hopkins, and he took my call. And I went, whoa, this is interesting. And then I started doing that, and everybody I would call would take my call. And I was able to use my fame to pick the brains of the best and the brightest and most cutting edge. Now, what it really encompasses for me is I've reached a place where I realize there is a new way to age. And it's incredible. And it doesn't require, in most cases, even a single drug. I am 67 years old. I do not take a single pharmaceutical drug. I'm not against them. Thank you. I'm telling you this for a reason, because I want you to know that I walk my talk. I'm not against pharmaceuticals. If you need them, they're a godsend for pain, infection, mental illness, things outside my scope. And a human being will do just about anything to get rid of pain, and we've all been there, and that, 4 tequilas in and a Tylenol is pretty nice. I don't do that. Never have more than 2. You'll be sorry. Although a report came out yesterday on tequila, the clear stuff, that it is actually good for you and it's not fattening. And if you're diabetic, there's something called agavins in it that actually lowers your blood sugar. So how about that? Have a tequila. And one nutritionist said to me one day, she goes, well, do you want to look like a potato or a cactus? And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, vodka's made from potatoes. You can get fat. She said, you drink tequila, you'll look like a cactus. I went, okay, rock on. Okay, none of this is what I want to talk to you about, though. What I want to talk to you about is this new way to age. And I'm looking out here, and I see, say, maybe 30 through 50, 60. Oh, my. You need to know what I'm going to explain to you. You are now, because of the toxins in the environment and the amount of stress that we are experiencing, women as young as 35 years old are starting to experience hormonal decline. And when you do, the body has a language. I call it the 7 dwarves of menopause, although it could be the 7 dwarves of perimenopause or postmenopause. Here they are. Itchy, bitchy, sleepy, sweaty, bloated, forgetful, and all dried up. Any of them in your house? They are no fun at all, and the whole house is aware when the dwarves have arrived. So most women don't. I wrote a book this year called I'm Too Young for This, for perimenopause, because every young woman I talk to about this, they go, oh, I'm too young for this. I go, really? And my daughter, she's too young for this. She's 52. She's too young for this. Okay, whatever. All right, I know. You're never going to be old. But she can't sleep. She's bloated all the time. Not very interested in sex. She doesn't know why she's gaining weight for no reason. I go, yeah, you don't need hormones. Now imagine those are pretty common symptoms. Bloating, inability to sleep. How many in this room sleep 5 hours or less every night? Okay, all right, that's a symptom. Once you know what I'm going to tell you, you're going to be able to sleep a good 7 to 8 hours without drugs. And sleep is the game changer. If you're not sleeping, it's a whole setup for poor health, but I'll get to that. Okay, so when you are stressed, when you're young, or any of the ages I've discussed, that blunts hormone production. Any near miss in the car, you blunt hormone production. That fight you had with your husband blunts hormone production. Your teenage daughter definitely blunts your hormone production. And what usually happens in most homes is the teenage daughter or daughters and the mother are all going through hormonal changes at the same time, and that's why it's like World War III in most households. I'm watching that with my granddaughters right now going, oh my, those sweet little things. And nobody understands one another, and especially your husbands don't understand you. So it started for me with I stopped sleeping. Oh, I had a terrible 3 years. I would go to bed really tired because I hadn't slept the night before. I'd sleep for 15 minutes deep. I'd fall asleep as soon as I got into bed. 15 minutes later, I'd wake up soaking wet, just soaking wet. And you'd have to, to the point you have to get up and change your clothes. And then you lie awake for a couple hours because your thyroid's so whacked out because of the hormone imbalance, which I'll explain to you also in a minute. And then you finally fall back asleep again, wake up 15 minutes later, soaking wet, get out of bed, change your clothes. This went on for me for 3 years. I didn't sleep for 3 years. And when you're not sleeping, you start gaining weight. So I had the pleasure of seeing myself in National Enquirer Candid Shots saying things like, her suit looks snug, doesn't it? And you know what I want to say back to them because, everything made me mad at that time because I'm just in a bad mood because I haven't slept in 3 years. How would you feel if you haven't slept in 3 years? So that was terrible. And then I did start gaining weight for no reason. I wasn't eating any different. I didn't really know much about eating then when I think about the way I used to eat as compared to now, because it's all about the food. What we put in is what determines our outcome. So I went from doctor to doctor to doctor, and I was offered antidepressants, sleeping pills, diuretics, cholesterol lowering, what else? Valium, anti-anxiety. Pills, and I didn't want to take pills. And I remember saying to this one old doctor, "Really? Is this the best you have to offer women, really?" And he patted me on the back and he said, "The drug companies know best, dear." And I thought, you old fool. And then I heard up in Santa Barbara about this endocrinologist who understood something about natural hormones. And I called her up and I said, "I feel terrible. I just feel terrible. I don't even know who I am anymore. My husband is saying things like, Suzanne, a marriage can only take so much of this." And I didn't realize I was taking it out on him. And I love him. I've been with him for 46 years. I love him. And I would wake up and say things like, "No, it's you." So she sent me my lab work to take my blood test. I drive up there the day of my appointment like a mad woman. It took me 2 hours to get there. I get in her office, and she looks at my blood work. She goes, "Oh, you poor thing." I said, "What?" She said, "Oh, you have almost no estrogen, and your progesterone is so dangerously low. You must feel terrible." I said, "I do. I feel terrible. I don't even feel like me. I used to be nice and friendly, and people liked me. I was Chrissy Snow." And now who am I? I'm this bitch. So she said, "It's all going to be okay." "Yeah? What?" She said, "I'm going to put you on natural bioidentical hormones." "So what's that?" She said, "Bioidentical means biologically identical to the human hormone, an exact replica of what your body once made or is still making little bits of." And by my blood work, she was able to see the individualization of exactly what I needed to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And she said, "I can't give you everything you need all at once." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, it took a while for this to, run out of you. We've got to put it back in increments." I said, "Why just give me everything?" She said, "You can't play around with hormones." She said, "If I just threw everything at you that you need right now, you would get a little crazy." She said, "But you're going to feel better." She said, "Within first couple of weeks, you're going to see a big difference." And I did. I started sleeping a little better, and my eyes started looking better, got clear again. Within 4 months, I was feeling really good. And every time I had a symptom, I'd call her, because that's what you do. I'm going to tell you where to find these doctors, too. That's what you do. If itchy, bitchy, sleepy, sweaty, bloated, forgetful, or all dried up is part of your reality, those are symptoms. So I would call this doctor and say, "My leg itches." "Oh, yeah?" She'd go, what are your stresses this week?" And as I'd go through them, she'd go, "Okay, well, you probably, blew it out a little bit." She said, "Let's add a little bit more." It became alchemy. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. You don't take too much, because if you take too much, you bloat. If you take too much, it works in reverse. You gotta it's like, and you get to know after a while exactly what your needs are. It's really quite an interesting science. Now you're all going, "Yeah, but hormones are gonna kill me. I'm gonna get cancer." No, the synthetic hormones, Premarin and Prempro, Provera, according to the Women's Health Initiative in 2002, showed an increased risk of women getting cancer, in particular breast cancer, of 69%. That's why all women got afraid of hormones, because no one ever differentiated. No one ever said, "Oh, but those aren't the natural ones." On natural bioidentical hormones, there's a 40% decreased risk of getting cancer, and there's never been one reported case of cancer of anybody on bioidentical hormones, because it's from nature. It's just putting back in you what you used to have. Doesn't that make sense? Rather than a drug, I'm declining in hormones, the juice of youth. The hormones are responsible for your brain working, for your bones staying strong, for your vitality, for your energy, for your sex drive. Most women reach my age and it's like, "Oh, I'm over that." And I go, if you had hormones, you'd probably remember how fun it was. You know, a sexual person is a healthy person. You can't feel sexual if you're not healthy. No sick person is in the mood for sex. So I see sexuality, not, you don't have to have sex, but the idea that it seems appealing to you because you have yourself in hormonal balance is an indicator that you are healthy, that the body's all working well. Another language. The body talks all the time. We rarely listen. So I want to show you something, but I have to, I don't know if I can do this holding this. You all remember a teeter-totter. Remember a teeter-totter on the playground? Okay. So let's say there are two sets of hormones. There are minor hormones and major hormones. Minor hormones are estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and pregnenolone. Major hormones are thyroid, adrenal, cortisol, and insulin. Okay. Let's say on this side of the teeter-totter is where your minor hormones are, all your minor sex hormones. Although why they call them minor, I don't know, because when you don't have enough of them, there's nothing minor about it. And on this side of my arm will be the majors. Okay. Now here you are, you're 35, 40, 45 years old. It used to happen, by the way, when women were more in their 50s, but that's what's because of toxicity and chemicals, we're declining faster. All right. When you start declining in estrogen and progesterone over here, this dips. Now you're not feeling good. Now you're not feeling good at all. And what it does is it raises the majors. Now why is that a factor? Well, over here, insulin. High insulin. That's why you're gaining weight without eating. That's why you're exercising more, eating less, and you can't get rid of that damn weight, right? That's because these over here, the minors, are dipping. Also, your cortisol is now high because these have dipped, and cortisol is why you are not sleeping. Cortisol is a stress hormone. When your minors are low, it indicates to the body that you got trouble. So that's why you can't sleep. You can't sleep if your cortisol is high. That's why you're up all night. You cannot sleep. It's awful. I've been there. I was there for 3 years. It's awful when you can't sleep. Also, your thyroid gets off. Now, the thyroid, I could write a whole book about the thyroid. I find it such an interesting little guy. The thyroid's right here. And your brain has something called the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary axis. That hypothalamus and pituitary talk to the thyroid. And when they talk to the thyroid then tells all the other hormones what to do. So if your thyroid's off, now you're not sleeping, you're gaining weight, you're in bad mood, you can't sleep, you're getting fat, you don't want to have sex, you don't want any of those things because you're like this. So how do you get balance back again? By having your blood work done like I did with that incredible woman I met and get your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA levels back at optimal healthy prime. I hope that gave you a good visual for that. It is so important for your overall and long-term health to make sure you keep your major hormones in balance, thyroid, adrenal, cortisol, and insulin. We all know what happens when insulin runs amok. Anybody who's ever hyper or hypothyroid knows what that feels like. That feels like you're absolutely going crazy. You can tell someone who has low thyroid, especially men on television. I do this all the time. It's awful. I sit there, I go, oh, well, he's got thyroid problems. Because you lose the outer third of your eyebrows. See, we women can fill them in or we wear bangs, but the guys are all out there. And the skin starts getting saggy and the body just kind of loses its tone. But there's only superficial things. What happens when the thyroid is off is it's like the orchestra leader did not show up for the symphony. So behind where the leader should have been are all the players, and they're all professionals. They've all studied all their life. They all know what to do, but there's no orchestra leader who showed up, thyroid, to tell them what to play. So they all look around and go, well, I'll play whatever I think, and they all play something different, and you have discordance, and that's what happens in your entire body. And sleeping, if you take sleeping pills or Ambien or anything like that, that's not sleep. Unfortunately, it pacifies when you can't sleep. And I understand that there are times when, it's just better to get this suspended state that is not really sleep. But it is a suspended state, and none of the healing hormone works because nature is so unbelievably incredible. Nature provided for us to sleep 7-8 hours a night because it has a lot of work to do while we're sleeping. Can't do it while we're up. They're busy running the engine, running the show. But at night when we're sleeping, it's the healing hormone work. That's when everything starts balancing out. So think of all of you who aren't sleeping. You're not getting that process that nature wanted. There's another thing now, though, that I've never had to talk about before. There's a huge factor in why you're not feeling well, if you're not. I'm presuming that this is of interest because we women, we want to know how to not end up the way our grandparents and parents and aunts and uncles are ending up now. That's my whole thrust. I want to live as long as technology has now provided. And the reason hormones are important, is because we have experienced life extension. We're all going to live much longer than our parents and grandparents. But with what quality? If you're starting to zero out of hormones 35, 40 years old, and you're going to live to 90 or 100, do you want to go all those years feeling like crap? And orthodox medicine doesn't teach this to the patients because they don't learn it in medical school. At present, right now, our medical students get approximately 4 hours of instructions in hormones. 4 hours. It's not considered important because when the protocol was designed, we were all dying at 60 and 65. I should have been dead, 5-7 years ago. I have so much more to do, to live, to be. Life is so incredible. And they are funded by pharmaceutical companies, so it behooves them to teach a doctor when a woman comes in with the symptoms of hot flashes and no sex drive and stringy hair and brittle nails and weight gain and just pretty miserable. Put her on Premarin and put her on a sleeping pill and put her on a diuretic to get rid of the water and put her on an anti-anxiety and she'll shut up for a while. But what that cocktail does to us is requires more and more drugs as time goes on because all those molecules in your body are not compatible with the human body. The human body is going, what's all this stuff you're putting in us? And that's why we are seeing this terrible end. And I'm not going to be there. Nursing home, Alzheimer's, heart disease, cancer, not knowing who you are or were. How horrible. What a terrible way to end up. What a terrible way to end up in a nursing home. We all grew up with parents we had old grandparents and they lived in the house with us or they lived in the back house that we had or whatever. It was all nice. They came for dinner every night. It's the way it's supposed to be. But now, because of living so long and because of Alzheimer's being such an epidemic, it's just not practical to have someone with that kind of disease at home. And so it's awful. No one wants to do this, but you put that loved one in a nursing home. How do we all avoid that? By understanding that if we're going to live longer, we have to restore ourselves to quality of life to give us optimal health. When did you feel the best? 35, 40, 45? Felt great? Just, weight wasn't an issue and your mind was really sharp, everything. Well, that's what you get to be. In fact, I had my age analyzed in Korea. I opened an anti-aging center called the Sham Center in South Korea last year. And not my chronological age, but my biological age was 43. That's because all my organs and glands are working at optimum because guess what hormones do? They feed the organs and glands. It's an awesome thing to experience, to get joy and energy and vitality and sexuality at this age and be clear about it and have the wisdom that comes. I'm the new face of the matriarch. This is what it is and should be today. At this age now, we want younger people to come to us and want what we have. Aging should be aspirational, not something that you dread. And at the moment, everybody's dreading aging. I'm here. I love it. Honest. I sleep 8 hours every night. I bloat some, but what do you want? So that's what I was going to tell you. That's the new factor. The chemicals in our environment and in our food and what we're cleaning our houses with and what's being sprayed and what's in the air and what's in the water, fluoride, all these things are playing havoc with our GI tracts. And you think, what does that have to do with hormones? The GI tract is called the second brain. It talks to the brain. Now remember, the key player up there, the hypothalamus and pituitary, in a healthy working brain tells the thyroid what to do. But if this signal from the gut doesn't get there, we've got a big upset in the body. So when you're eating all these foods, processed foods, trans fats, etc., it starts eating through the barrier of our GI tract. Our GI tract is so interesting. If you laid out the GI tract, it would cover an entire tennis court. And what's incredible about the GI tract is all around it are good and bad flora, the bad pathogens and the good pathogens. And the balance of that is what creates your immune system. But if you got more bad pathogens than the good ones, your immune system weakens. When your immune system weakens, you don't make that feel-good hormone serotonin. So it changes your mood. If you don't have serotonin, serotonin doesn't speak to the brain to trigger the hypothalamus pituitary axis, which talks to the thyroid. The thyroid tells everybody what to do. The body is not just one part. The body is a whole system. It's a fascinating system. I mean, most women want jewelry for Christmas. I asked my husband 2 years ago, all I wanted was a university body where I could pull all the organs, everything out. And recently, because I've had radiation, I called a doctor friend of mine up in Seattle, and I said, I have this burning, like right here, this burning right there. I said, so I took out the lungs, I took off the breastplate, then I took off the lungs, then I took out the heart, and then I took out the liver, and now I'm looking at the stomach. And I'm seeing right where the opening to the stomach, I said, gosh, it's actually like a little anus right there at the top of your stomach. And I said, but that's where my burning is. He said, well, yeah, you had radiation. He said, so you have scar tissue, which has paralyzed that one area there. So your food is having a hard time getting into your stomach. By the way, the stomach's over here, not here. This is the intestines of the stomach. And I thought, how interesting that is. Because anybody who's had radiation, it's knocked out your body's ability to make digestive acids, hydrochloric acid, for life. So if you don't take hydrochloric acid to put the juices back in there, you won't get this digestion. Anyway, imperfect food starts eating through that protective barrier that keeps the immune system intact. And what's in that perfect barrier, if it's in balance, is an antibiotic-like effect, natural in your body, antiviral, antibacteria. It's also got interferon, which is your anti-cancer part of your immune system. It's really an important thing to keep in shape. And because of what we're talking about, when it eats little holes through your intestines and your gut, it leaks out. Ever heard of leaky gut? It leaks out. You get leaky gut. And now these toxins are out in the bloodstream. And the immune system thinks they're all foreign invaders and attacks them. And now you get MS or fibromyalgia or lupus, these things that we never used to hear before. And you're thinking, why are these so prevalent now? Why are so many people? I know so many women with MS. So it's about keeping your GI tract healthy so that your hormone, the whole system of your hormones can work adequately. How do you do that? Probiotics. Probiotics are more important than a multivitamin. I think you should take both. And if you saw me on Oprah, I take a lot more than that. But I'm kind of a fanatic about this because I know what each one of these things does. But the most important thing that you can do every day is take a probiotic every morning and every night. If you got a lot of bloating, if you're bloated all the time, then you probably want to go into, there's a brand called Renew Life. It's called Critical Care, 200 billion a day. And it will make a huge difference. And the foods that you eat make a huge difference. Fats. We're all afraid of fats. the myth about fats is really too bad, because if you analyze butter, which is predominantly monounsaturated and polyunsaturated and about 16% polyunsaturated, it's almost the exact same composition as breast milk. Now, isn't that interesting? What nature wanted us to grow and develop with is breast milk that was so fatty. And the human stomach is made to digest meat and animal fats and proteins, and yet we've got this low-fat craze going and this cholesterol scare going, and the brain, which is made of 85% fat, loves fat. It craves it. It needs it. So all the people who are on these low fat, I don't need any fat, they're starting to miss the ends of their sentences. They're getting forgetful because the brain is not getting what it needs, and it starts shrinking. And when the brain starts shrinking, guess what? It affects that whole hormone center again, the hypothalamus and pituitary, who forgets to talk to the thyroid, and the thyroid's going, okay, what am I supposed to do? So you see how it all works together, and why when you go to your regular doctor that he doesn't know anything about it, and you go away with a bunch of drugs, and then you come home taking those pills, and you never get right. Wouldn't you love to know that you can be right forever? That you can get your body working at optimum? That you can keep your looks? You can have good hair and nails, and most of all, more than anything, your brain? Imagine hitting 90, 100 with a sharp brain and strong bones, because estrogen and progesterone build bones. When you don't have estrogen and progesterone, look what happens to women at mid-age. They get osteoporosis, osteopenia. This all happens to men too, and I see a few men here, and you do not get off scot-free. I'm telling you right now. There's a reason they do movies called Grumpy Old Men. Because you have something called andropause. It just takes a little longer. We women drain out of 90% of our hormones over a 2-year period. That's why when it first starts happening, big time, it's frightful. You don't even recognize yourself, like I didn't recognize myself. But for men, it takes 10 or so years to drain out, but it does. And they get sloping shoulders, big bellies, a lack of energy. They sleep a lot. They don't want to dance. Well, they never wanted to dance, did they? I'm telling you, when you're both on hormones in the household, we're dancing. It's quite wonderful. It's wonderful at this stage. Our children are grown. We have grandchildren. And we're having this love affair. And we're having this love affair because we're healthy, because we feel so good, because neither of us are all pilled up. It takes a leap. We're so used to our orthodox doctors, and you can go to them for all the things you go to and love them, and they're great, and I love doctors. But for my hormones and for my anti-aging, I want the right kind of doctor. There's a network called foreverhealth.com. Foreverhealth.com. It will take you to a qualified doctor nearest you. Your appointments will be less expensive than for those people who don't go that way. They do blood testing through Life Extension, which is absolute quality. Your blood test is interpreted by a scientific advisory board of 26 people. If your issue is thyroid, they see by your lab work when you call up to get your results, you are put with Mr. Lab Expert Doctor. If your issue is estrogen dominance, you need to understand what that is. That's why I got cancer. Estrogen dominance means you're making a lot of estrogen and no progesterone. That's where the bad mood comes from. Progesterone is your feel-good hormone. Progesterone is what makes you happy, in a good mood. When you don't have progesterone, you're just not too happy, and you're getting fat. Estrogen bodies are the curvy girls with the big boobs and the hips and everything. And the men always go for those big boobs and hips. But it's the skinny testosterone bodies with the small breasts and the narrow hips. They've got the major sex drive because they make excess testosterone. But let's not tell any men this, okay? The understanding how your body works is your job. I have written all this in my books. You can pretty much pick up any one of them. You're going to start learning how the body works. It's the most empowering thing to go to the doctor and go, wait, why would you say that? Because you know how it all works. It's like me going, I have a burning here and taking my university body all apart. I have such a clear understanding. Then when I took the stomach apart, then I saw the lining of the stomach, and I saw where the leaks can happen. Do you know there's so much brain disease today? Guess where that starts? In here. Eating through the lining of the GI tract, and the bad bacteria in there take the toxins and they search around. Everybody's different. Some people get macular degeneration. Some people get arthritis. Some people get brain fog, can't remember anything. Some people get cancer. It's very, very important. Every choice you make about food in today's world is very important. Our food is genetically modified for the most part. We really tried here in California this year to get genetically modified food labeled so at least we could see what it is, but they have such deep pockets that we weren't able to win with that. But if you're not buying organic, you're probably buying genetically modified. There's a line out there by one of the big chemical companies saying this is how we will feed the world. Well, I read 2 lab reports on lab rats. Each set of lab rats were fed genetically modified food exclusively, corn and soy, for 2 years. All of them developed organ failure and organ damage. Half of them were sterile. The other half that didn't die had strange aberrations like hair growing between their teeth and hair growing around their organs. And this is the food they want us to eat to feed the world. I think we all need to go back to little victory gardens and grow our own vegetables and know what you're eating because it's so important. And fun. I have a little vegetable garden. It's so fun, except when you get bugs, but that's like part of it. You learn every year, you know, you succeed and fail as a new farmer, but I love to go down and pick a cauliflower and bring it up to the kitchen and steam it. This tastes different, just cut and then eaten. It's wonderful. You can feel all the enzymes. Also, to keep your GI tract in shape, besides the probiotic, if you're bloating a lot, it's usually because you've got bacterial overgrowth in there. You want to kill those little buggers, and it's you just got to go on a murderous rampage to kill all those bad guys in there. And the best way to do that, okay, don't hate me, but just cut out all carbs and all sugar for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on your problem. Because what those little guys in your stomach want more than anything is sugar. They just sit down there waiting for you to eat something sugar. With sugar, they love. Cancer loves sugar. Just starve those little buggers out of there for a month or 6 weeks. It'll happen. And during that time, you can have a high-fat, high-vegetable, high-protein diet, which is very satisfying, against everything everybody thinks. The whole cholesterol thing. There's a book out now by Stephen Sinatra, no relation, called The Cholesterol Myth. I love reading that. And then there's several doctors are out with cholesterol myth kind of documents now. That so-called LDL that's supposed to be so bad for us, do you know what that does? That LDL, if your brain is made up of fat and the neurons in the brain are made up of cholesterol, and at least 50% of them, and you have to have fat in your brain for your brain to keep reproducing neurons, which you want, so you have. But your memory is created by a little bridge called a synapse between one cell and the next. You know what that little bridge is made of? LDL. Now you're going, but that's what my doctor keeps saying. Oh, your LDL, that's the bad stuff. It's so high. It's inflammation that is the culprit in heart disease. It's inflammation that's the culprit in your gut. Inflammation is caused by processed carbohydrates and sugar. If you can just give it up for 6 weeks and see how good you feel. So what have you learned? So you can go to a doctor to find how to get your teeter-totter balanced. And oh my, when you do. I wish I could be around for each one of you to see the joy on your face. There is a woman backstage who's the a manager here, and when I saw her, it's like so many women, I read your book. It's just awesome. I remember when Rosie O'Donnell had that big meltdown on The View. Remember? So I called her. I said, Rosie. She said, what? And I said, all right, I'm your friend, right? You really need hormones. That was so hormonal. And it was. I was at home going, oh, my God. And so she listened. About 2 months later, I get a call, no hello, anything. All I hear in her New York accent, life altering. It changes people. It gives you your life back. It gives you your joy back. And once your children are out of the house, so many women fall apart. I mean, I miss them. I ask them things like, your work's going well, isn't it? Because I like being alone at home at night with my husband because we're young again, in the best sense of the word. We're not trying to be young. We're not trying to, be our kids or anything. We're just having a really great time. And isn't that what we deserve? We work hard all our lives. Women have had to multitask so much to have careers and run families and take care of the house and be the perfect mother. And it's a huge, huge task that we are assigned. And now everybody's gone. And you get that room that you can turn that into your crafts room. And I remember when my son moved out, the last one moving out, I cried. Oh, this is like the Tonight Show. Okay, I got it. All right, I got it. Turn it off. I'm leaving in 5 minutes. Turn that music off. I looked at his room and I was crying because he was gone. And about an hour later, I said to my husband, if we knock this wall down. Anyway, I hope it's piqued an interest in you. I cannot tell you how great it is to experience optimal health at this age. How great it is to want to shout your age to everybody so that younger women can go, well, that doesn't look so bad. Stuff happens, we know that, but it's the energy. The difference between youth and age is energy. Old people, usually you see them walking across the street like that. What about if we all had great posture and a spring in our step? It's all possible because there is a new way to age. Thank you.